All right, everyone, the doors have been closed. You can no longer leave the room. Thank you for coming. This is officially on the program, an episode of Unsheathed, which is numbered something or another, but actually it's probably not sheathed number 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's 3 or 4.
Something like that. Yes.
Okay, we're on.
I'm recording. No. We're totally recording here.
Yeah.
We recorded the whole inappropriate airplane fursuit conversation also, so that would be a great start to the podcast. So hi, welcome. Thank you for coming out to our podcast. As we mention every year, RainFurrest was the first place that we did a live recording of Unsheathed, and we always love to come back here and do it again. KM is with us in spirit, if not in buckets. But yeah. So hey,
hi.
I'm Kyell Gold. I do the Unsheathed podcast, and I write a lot of books. And
I'm Fuzzwolf. I've never done a podcast before, so I'm a little nervous.
Did you seriously just say you're a little nervous?
No, I didn't. If I did, I was mumbling. I didn't
okay.
actually mean to do that.
Thank you.
No. Well, for those that don't know, I do a podcast called Notcast. It's in like the 260-something episodes now. More relevant to the writing track I own for Planet Productions, which we just published a new book by my co-host too.
We'll talk about the new book in a bit. It's I have it here.
Round of applause.
Yes. So we both done podcasts. Notcast, I will say, was the podcast that encouraged us to start Unsheathed, and is still going after Unsheathed has been on like several different hiatuses. So
we got
many kudos to you. It takes I know firsthand how much dedication and work it takes to keep doing a podcast week after week.
Yeah, I appreciate
until
that.
you just wish Flanders was dead. But yeah, so congrats to you and the whole crew.
Thank you,
Savarnan, Shiva, and the other people who have floated in and out over the years.
Yeah, the ever-changing cast of characters there.
Right.
It's been stable for a couple of years now, though.
So here's what we're going to do. We are going to talk a little bit about RainFurrest, which is where we are, RainFurrest 2014. As we discussed before the podcast, we're going to judge the convention based on 1.5 days. And we're
It's all on you Friday.
We're going to talk a little bit about the theme and cyberpunk and sort of generally other things related to that, and then we'll probably just bullshit about stuff and then take some questions, which is
that works.
Kind of how these podcasts go.
Yeah, they could go any direction. I don't know. It's a little frightening.
So as Fuzzwolf referenced, at this convention, I have a new book out, which is published by Fur Planet Productions, written by me, illustrated by the illustrious Black Tegan, who also contributed to the title. The book is called Dude, Where's My Fox? And it is a touching story with a lot of sex in it.
A lot of touching.
A lot of touching, yes.
Beat us to the punchline.
So it's basically the story of a guy who wakes up after a drunken hookup at a party, realizes that the only thing he can remember about the guy he slept with is it was a fox, and then proceeds to decide, because he's just gone through a breakup, that it's very important to him to track down who this fox was. And he enlists the help of a couple people to search through the community and all the people who might have been at the party, and they narrow it down to 3 candidates. So you have a general 3 thing, which gives it a little bit of a fairy tale structure. So it's sort of like Cinderella crossed with Goldilocks crossed with gay sex and furries. So.
If you can wear this glass condom, you may be the one.
It is. It was in fact, while I was writing it, it was referred to by one of my colleagues as the glass condom story. And at one point in the story, they call his quest this glass condom search. They call it something else, which I came up with, which you'll have to read the book to find out. But we are officially launching it tomorrow night at 9. I will read a passage from the book, which it took me a long time to figure out a passage that would be not super embarrassing to read in front of an audience, but I found one, and it's pretty much the setup for the book. So if you're on the fence about whether you want to pick this up or not, come to the launch tomorrow at 9. You can hear me do a couple of voices and basically give you the scene that sets up the whole conflict for the book. And then Sunday you can go to Fur Planet and buy it if there are any left, because they have been selling pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're through about 2/3 of what we brought with us already, so you may not want to wait.
But you can also order it online.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the book has been doing well, which is cool. The con has been a lot of fun.
That's been pretty good, yeah.
What's your favorite memory of the day and a half so far?
The dinner I just had was quite nice. I don't know. I can show you this, and I can at least get your awe on the podcast.
Okay.
So
Nobody else is going to see it. It's just me.
We went to dinner with Furry, who draws the Meteor Shower series, and we went to a restaurant that had you can draw on the tablecloths, and he did this whole drawing for Tyrion and I.
Oh, that's
There we go.
if you know Meteor Showers, you would completely recognize the style, and I'm frankly surprised that your waiter didn't remark upon it if it wasn't just like out on the table. But
I mean, it's not explicit at least. And Tyrion
I was trying to make them think it was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is
Tyrion
not
took the
actually
butter knife and
explicit.
cut
It's just adorable.
It is. It's very cute. We're gonna scan it when we get home, and right now it's sitting up in our room. So, but no, seriously, dinner was good. Other than that, it's just running around doing the table. I did the Getting Published panel this morning with Ocean and Voice, and that went pretty well.
Cool.
I think that and this are the only panels I'm on this con. So I know you're doing quite a few more. So.
Yeah, but like a lot of my panels are things like I'm on 3 panels for the writing competition, which if you haven't entered it, it's probably too late unless you want to try to write a story by 4 p.m. tomorrow, which you can do. But basically that's like 3 panels where I just have to show up to a room and sit there, and if people ask me questions, I answer them. I don't have to. I have to be a judge, so I have to be available for consultation, but I don't have to actually like prepare a panel. And then 2 of them are book launches, which again, like I did the charity anthology launch because I have a story in that, and I basically just showed up and wrote my name in a book a bunch of times. Not the same book, different books. Just one book I signed over and over again. It's gonna be in the charity auction if you want. And then the book launch tomorrow. For this one, all I have to do is show up and smile and wave the book and then read a section from it, which is fun, and I want to do that anyway. And then I have to I'm doing my reading tomorrow morning, which if anybody wants to hear a segment of a book in progress that has not been published yet, what I'm going to read from is the 3rd book in the Dangerous Spirits trilogy, Black Angel. So I'm going to read a segment from that at 11 tomorrow morning and then take questions about that or anything else you want to ask me questions about. So that's like 6 panels that don't require a lot of preparation in advance. And then I just did a panel on taboo topics, which was really cool. I had a lot of fun with it. Mostly because what was cool was that my co-panelists were all very experienced in taboo topics, so I was just like, I'm going to be the moderator. And you guys get to talk about the stuff you write about, because all I write about is gay people, and that's not taboo anymore. That's freaking...
Sit there with a horrified expression on your face for the rest of the
normal,
panel.
yeah. Just like, you mean they're brothers?
Really? With a blender? Oh my God.
Funnily enough...
No.
So we were talking about Vor as one of the things, and White Yodi, who is like sort of the king of taboo topics in furry fandom, as far as I'm concerned, mentioned that he had to write Vor commissions, and there are like all these different subcategories of
Because
vores.
I've heard of soft vor and hard vor. I haven't heard of any others.
There's all kinds of things which I'm not going to list right now. You can find them on the website, but it's sort of like how do you just stay in the mouth? Do you get swallowed? What happens after? What doesn't happen? Whatever. And so I was trying to explain to people, if there's an aspect of it that you find exciting that is not contained in the stories, you should write your own. Like, for instance, and I always trap myself because I'll say these things, I'll say, like, for instance, and my brain is saying, put something funny after that. And then, and I'm just like, thank you, brain. You put something funny after that. So what I said was, like, if there's an aspect of vor that you find really exciting, like, the kind where you're put in a food processor and blended up and then drunk through a straw, and nobody's writing that kind of vor story, then you should write that vor story. So
you just hear a low moaning from the back of the room.
Yeah, everybody, yeah. So if you see that on FA in a month or two, it's my fault, and I apologize to all of you profusely.
I'm just thinking, it's like, wow, what if like the first Rocky movie was a vor story, and you start your day with cracking open a couple of furries and dropping them in the blender?
No, will it blinch?
Oh my God, yes. I don't want to see furries on that. Is that a Tumblr or just a blog? I think it predates Tumblr.
There actually was somebody a few years ago that was doing like EDM music under the name Furries in a Blender.
Wow. Yeah. So anyway,
okay, somebody got the reference.
So anyway, that's how blenders came up in my panel. So thank you for that. We got a story out of it at least. I did a panel on how to write novels. I'm doing one on writing historical fiction. That might be it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I
had proposed that
Anyway.
they have historical fiction and hysterical fiction at the same time in the two different writing rooms, just to confuse everybody.
Well, and I think what we were talking about too was having hysterical fiction.
Oh, yeah.
So the history of hysteria, if you guys don't know, had something.
Yeah.
Yes. People in the audience are like, oh yeah. There was a whole movie about it where it was like hysterical women had to be treated with vibrators and given orgasms and stuff. So
My aunt reviewed the film.
Hysterical?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
For history, because like a hysterectomy, the is the root word for uterus, so.
Right. So hysteria comes from that, and it's been normalized since then to just be generic and right. So anyway, yes, hysterical fiction would be hysterically
Women's
funny.
fiction.
Yes.
I guess. So the theme of this RainFurrest is cyberpunk.
Yes.
And for that, you published the charity anthology, which is called. I'm going to make you say it.
What? Oh, God, was it Furry? I can't even remember it now.
See, now you're just turning it back. You know it. You just want to make me say it.
No, it's Virtual Horizons.
There you go.
I think?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Virtual Horizons.
That's right.
Is that the first science fiction / is that the first cyberpunk book you guys have done?
Ooh, that's such a good question, because like I don't work on all of them. Tyrion works on some of them. I think in like Zia Save the Day, there's probably characters with like cybernetic arms or
okay.
something like
Gotcha.
that. But as far as like pure cyberpunk, I don't think we've done. Actually, I take that back. Beautiful World by Christina Tracer, I would say, would be more cyberpunk.
Okay.
Has
Cool.
that sort of Second Life-ish kind of interface, and it starts with a guy who's a human being who uploads his consciousness into this VR world, and he's fallen in love with a character there who is a complete CG creation, who's like a female ferret. I'm pulling from memory, but so yeah, that's actually very, very kind of cyberpunk.
See, if you don't remember, just make up better details. You've fallen in love with the CG creation who is a female ferret and a male polar bear at the same time.
Well, in a world like that, I mean, it'd be possible.
Yeah,
There was
yeah,
a male
yeah,
polar
sure.
bear in the real world, and then jacked in, and he was a.
Actually, it's a
ferret.
hermaphroditic Fair Bear.
God, it's actually funny that you say that though, because there is not that part.
I appreciate that. We got some laughs from the audience. You didn't need to reassure me that it was funny, but thank you.
The part about the bear being a ferret online, there is one of the stories in the RainFurrest charity anthology is this sort of a Shadowrun-esque, this group of people is going to go and do a job, and one of the characters who's transgendered and species dysmorphic is a male bear in body, but appears as a female ferret schoolgirl.
Wow,
and
all
that's
right.
how they're actually projecting themselves to the world, because that's how they feel they really are. And so, yeah, the whole bear ferret thing, it's actually in the charity anthology.
Wow, that's really cool.
I feel like you guys like plan this.
Yeah, no, not so much. We just find the coincidences and exploit them.
Yeah, it was kind of amusing that happened. But on the subject of the charity anthology, for anyone that doesn't know, RainFurrest puts one out every year that's themed around the theme of the con, and the only people that make money on it are the people that print it for us. We don't take anything for it. All the writers and artists donate their work for it, and all of the profits that are made from it goes towards the con's charity for that year. So this year's pretty beefy. It's like over 90,000 words altogether, and it's only $10.
It's a bargain,
So-
I tell you.
Yeah, it actually is really good. It's got a bunch of really good stories in there. So if you buy it, you're getting some good stories, and you're supporting the con's charity.
Which is
It's a big
Oh,
cat
Cougar Mountain.
charity.
That's right.
Cougar Mountain. Thank
Right,
you.
right.
Thank you, staff member. for that.
Yeah, so I have a story in the charity anthology. They had originally announced that there would be 2 charity anthologies, that there would be a G to PG one and then an R to X rated one for adult reader people. And this was the first time they tried to do the adult charity anthology. And so I wrote, feeling that I should contribute to both, I wrote 2 stories which are actually paired. They are 2 views. Well, they're 2 separate events. They can each be read separately, and you won't be missing anything. It's not like one of them ends and you don't know what happened. But they're related, and one was adult and one was not. So I set up this whole situation where, in this cyberpunky furry world kind of place. And then what happened apparently was that nobody but me actually submitted to the adult charity anthology. And the story was not long enough to publish by itself because it was only 4,000 words. So it would have been like a little chapbook anthology of one.
Tijuana Bible?
Which those tend not to sell very well for $10.
We
so
can print it as a Tijuana Bible, maybe.
or like a chick tract kind of thing.
Yes, perfect.
Like
Have Ken illustrated
Computer-
like on her little post-it note
oh my god,
style.
the little post-it scratch. Yes.
Yeah.
Computer furry doom. But yeah, so what happened was they were like, okay, we're not going to do the adult one, but we'll take your story for the other one, which was cool. So my story is in the other one. The adult story I posted on my FA account, so you can read that for free. I also wrote a story for the con book, and that is sort of vaguely in the same world as the other 2, because I was trying to figure out how to make cyberpunk furry without it just being, oh, it's cyberpunk but with furries. So I had to think a lot about the genre of cyberpunk, and I know that there is at least one person in the audience who I've had discussions with about cyberpunk, so I will trust Watts to stand up and shout at me if I get something wrong about it. But as I was looking back and trying to figure out how do I write a cyberpunk story, because I've been a fan of the genre, but I mean 3 stories is more than I've written in my entire life of cyberpunk. So, but it's an interesting genre that peaked in the mid '80s and it seems to me to be about sort of a fear of losing individuality in a technological age, where there's a lot of people uploading their consciousness. There's also a lot of corporations coming after people and trying to subsume the individual, trying to make everybody fall into line, very much like the 1984 kind of things. And so there's that both assertion of individuality through technology and fear of loss of individuality through technology. And there's, separate worlds, and the real world tends to be very grimy and gritty. The online world tends to be a little more idealized, but also kind of dangerous. The element of danger is big in the cyberpunk field.
But you can be whatever you want to be
Right.
in that world.
And so the way that I approached furry cyberpunk was imagining a society not too far into the future where we can have online avatars, and the point at which the two paired stories happens is when these two guys have been making these very realistic furry avatars for people online, and a teen pop star a la Justin Bieber is shooting some...
Justin Bieber.
Yeah, well, I think it was a remake of Alice in Wonderland or something, but they use one of these super realistic furry things, and then suddenly the whole world wants one because it's become popular, and they're like, oh my god, these things are amazing. And so it's these corporations trying to get the license to make these furry avatar online identities from these two people who are the only ones who are really making them realistic, because they're making them basically for the furry fandom. So furries are in it. So it's a story set in our world in the future, but with furries like us as opposed to furries like our avatars. And so that was kind of how I ended up imagining it. So I'm interested to read the anthology and see how other people imagine it. Actually, the bear ferret story sounds really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff in the anthology this year. I was really happy with it, how it turned out. And I've noticed that with cyberpunk, a lot of it is very near future, as opposed to the more, like the really positive science fiction, like Star Trek, is very far future. It's like 400 to 500 years from now, but cyberpunk stuff tends to be like, well, nowadays, like late 21st century,
right,
as opposed to like 100 years from now or something.
Or even sooner. I mean, if you've seen the face rig stuff that's out now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beginning of basically having these avatars that we can represent ourselves as.
I kickstarted that with them, so I haven't had a chance to play around with it yet, but that panda is super cute. They did a wolf and they called it Moon Moon, which is awesome.
Does it randomly just derp out?
No, it should.
They all do, kind of.
The reason they called it Moon Moon is actually kind of lame. Apparently they couldn't decide in the office what to actually call the non-morphic wolf, so they just mutually agreed to call it Moon Moon.
Oh. I was thinking they like ran the name of the developer through the werewolf thing and came up with Moon Moon.
Yes.
Oh, my werewolf name is Moon Moon. That's funny. Someone should make an internet meme about that.
Best meme ever.
Yeah, seriously.
So in preparation for the theme here, the discussion, I actually had my right arm amputated from the elbow down and replaced with cybernetics.
Okay, cool.
Actually, not really. I started reading Neuromancer.
I was wondering about that because it's making kind of weird little glowy
you just hear this
sparks up and down
clicking
it, and
noise, and I see it kind of peaking on there.
Yeah.
I had not read Neuromancer yet. Of course,
Yeah.
I'd heard like amazing
full
things about
confession,
it.
I still have not.
Oh.
I've read the first sentence because it's famous, but not apart from that.
I've been enjoying it so far. I'm only about 20% into it, according to my Kindle's little counter, but I'm enjoying it. So, I really want to read Snow Crash.
That one I have read.
I've heard it's pretty damn good. So.
Oh, I think actually our friend
It's-
was just mentioning that. Sounds familiar.
We were
it's by Neil Stevenson.
Yeah, we were talking about it after the charity book launch last night. If you were in that discussion at all,
It was an interesting book. I enjoyed it quite a bit. He makes up a lot of pseudoscience, which did not quite convince me.
Mhm.
And when he was going on about old Babylonian tablets and whatnot, I was like, but that didn't work that way. But
Right.
you know,
It's kind of
I
funny
don't know,
about
okay, it's a
Neuromancer.
book. In his story, it does. Go ahead.
In reading about it, apparently it's both loved and hated by real hacker types and real computer types, because apparently William Gibson didn't really know anything about computers. So a lot of it is just completely pulled out of his head. So, which can either seem fantastic because it takes place in the near future anyway, and it's like, holy crap, this is amazing. Or you have someone that really knows their stuff about computers, which I don't, looking at it going, no, it doesn't work like this. But
Yeah, there's occasionally that moment, like the famous one in Jurassic Park, where she's like, I know this. This is Unix. You're like, that isn't. But okay, that's fine. You're being chased by dinosaurs, so I guess Unix being not Unix is not the least realistic thing about that movie. That's fine.
It's at the bottom of the list of your worries
Right.
at that moment.
I will say Jurassic Park was one of the movies we enjoyed a lot while watching it, and then enjoyed picking apart all the little nitpicks about it for the next hour and a half over burgers and fries in a diner. I saw it in Jersey, so there were diners.
I think another Jurassic Park quote was, "The network is on an internet."
In which?
I think that's on Jurassic Park 1.
Oh, in Jurassic Park, the network is on an internet. Yes. Oh, boy.
Interwebs.
So question about the charity anthology, actually. For people listening to this podcast who are not in the room right now, are they going to be able to continue to buy it from the Fur Planet website for a
Yep.
period of time?
Yep, we actually still have all the RainFurrest charity anthologies from the past, going on 4 years now, are still orderable from our website. So it'll be on there. It's on there right now, actually, for pre-orders. So we'll be shipping it out after the con, and you can pick up, the last 3 as well. So.
Okay, cool. So
Collect
yeah,
them all.
Collect them all. Help charities.
We have last year's here. I picked up last year's at.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
brought a handful of each of the previous years.
Yeah.
So, if anybody has any gaps in their RainFurrest charity anthology collection, but it's a mouthful.
Yes, indeed. So I guess we can go on to take questions if people have them. If they don't, I can talk about what I've been doing since the last time I recorded an episode of Unsheathed.
And delve more into
Which
Cyberpunk.
would take the full hour and a half we have remaining in this room, but we can talk more about Cyberpunk. Watts, did we miss anything crucial about Cyberpunk? Not really? Okay,
That
cool.
started here in Seattle. A lot of the.
Shadowrun is based on Seattle, but is specifically explicitly stated to not be Seattle.
Right.
But do you know about all the underground tunnels and stuff? here in
Yeah.
Seattle?
We took the underground tour here
I really want to do that. It
a
looks
few
so,
years ago.
The locals are probably all rolling their eyes right now, but I'm like, it looks so cool. But they utilize that a lot in the Shadowrun universe, which is very cyberpunk. And I only know that because my husband plays Shadowrun. And,
Right.
so I hear bits and pieces.
I know it's a cyberpunk tabletop game.
Yeah.
Nobody. Yes, we have a question.
Okay. Could I hear your opinions on cyberpunk or cyberpunk themes between across cultures, between say like the Western world, the Americas, and Europe, or and then Europe, and then Asia's like if you know any Japanese anime cyberpunk, or compared to like
Wow.
American comic cyberpunk, like.
Cross culture. So the question is our opinions on cross culture cyberpunk, like
Yeah.
Japanese anime cyberpunk versus European
Or
versus
any other
American.
culture of cyberpunk, how they're different between cultures, because I definitely know there's a little bit of.
That is an excellent question that I wish I were way more qualified to answer than I am. Do you know much anime, or can you talk about actually what you could talk about is cyberpunk as it relates to Doctor Who, which would be a British take on it.
It's more science. Doctor Who is more science fiction space opera. There are probably, I know there's some episodes that touch on cyberpunk. The one that was on just last week had an enhanced human was a character in it. So he had like memory that he could manually erase and some other little gadgets in his head and stuff like that. I was actually hoping to bring this up anyway. One of the newer authors I've discovered, her name's Lauren Bucas, is a South African author. And her first couple of books are actually quite cyberpunk. Her first one's called Moxieland. And her second one, and the reason I discovered her, is called Zoo City, which actually Tube has read Zoo City. He posted a review of it on Goodreads, and we're talking about it at a panel. But basically the concept of that was if you do something you're guilty about, it causes an animal to manifest itself that is attached to you. And you also get like some sort of talent and everything, and they all end up living in this sort of ghetto together. Her first one,
Wow, that's
Yeah.
freaky.
yeah, her first book is more cyberpunk as it goes a lot more into, the main character has these nanites implanted in her. It's called being a sponsor baby, where it basically forms this, it's not a tattoo, it actually becomes part of her skin. It's like a corporate logo, but it also gives her all these other like adrenaline high kind of boosts, like the kind of, you know, make you faster, stronger, a little bit more accurate, not like superpowers or anything like that.
Like instant drug tattoo.
Yeah, and then it turns out that they can actually be transmitted sexually, and you don't find that out until later.
Wow.
So it's like sort of the nanites and the technology kind of growing into the, and there's also takes place in a very repressive environment. But it takes place in 2018, so it's only like a few years away. And the idea, part of the idea being that like your whole life revolves around your cell phone. So like he has the wallet is basically like Google Wallet and everything like that. And you have a discharge offense is if you break the law at all, the cops can basically text your phone, and this discharge unit in it will basically shock you with like a couple 100,000 volts. Like it's a way of keeping order because everyone has a cell phone. And the ultimate like crime punishment is a disconnect offense, where they actually, you get disconnected, and then so you don't have a wallet anymore, you can't get on the train because everything like pings your SIM in order to do that. So I mean that's a South African author's take on cyberpunk, which is pretty grim.
It's interesting that it becomes so much a tool of authority, and mostly what I'd seen in American cyberpunk is the bad guys or the authority figures tend to be corporations, and it's interesting that the power goes into the government in that respect. Yeah.
Related to that, I mean, I know that anime is its own medium, and I have a mild familiarity with anime, but I grew up kind of playing video games and stuff like that, and it's a different medium, but where I've noticed there's a large disconnect between either the American, European, or the Japanese industry, which offhand I can think of as relatable to anime versus American comics, is in like anime comics that would kind of be classified as cyberpunk, you know, Ghost in the Shell, Evangelion, anything like that, and then you tend to have more character-driven stories that are linear and progressive, and when you American stories, it tends to be like it's one character, he's the best at everything, and there's a shit ton of lore that surrounds the world that he's in, but he himself is sort of a nameless hero that sort of combats whatever antagonist is there. And that is very different from like a more linear, character-driven, story-based environment. But that's one difference that I've noticed culturally. And
That's
then
interesting.
And the European games tend to be sort of another extreme. They tend to be more of sandboxes, whereas like EVE Online is an example where they give you the world. They don't give you anything else. It's like what you do with the world is up to you. but there's no lore, there's no character driven. So that's like one end of the spectrum. The Japanese is the other end of the spectrum. America kind of falls somewhere in the middle.
I was actually thinking as you're describing one character who's the best at everything, and I'm like, you're just describing the Matrix. That's basically what
Well,
you.
that's an American story.
Yeah.
Fable, Dragon Age, Morrowind, any of those, all of
Yeah.
those are American stories where it's like, I'm this guy, and I ended up in this scenario, I'm given this quest, and I'm just awesome.
Right.
But there's no other characters involved. There's no other interconnected story. It's just like there's more from the world that you're in, but that is very different from games like Final Fantasy, where it's like there's 6 characters that all have individual personalities that are working together and have individual conflicts and are driving a character-driven story.
Yeah, like the one I was gonna think of when you mentioned that characters together was like Bubblegum Crisis. That's super cyberpunk, where it's got like, you know, and then the villain is then like long dead corporations who have massive genetic experiments, and those things are rampant. It's like the damage has been done, and now you're picking up the pieces, kind of. I was wondering if you had any other just between any themes or something. But
I'm sadly I'm not familiar with anime very much, and
Alas.
and Watts, do you have anything to add?
No, not really.
No? You're being singled out by certain people around you. But,
Yeah.
but
I'm not real familiar with anime either.
No,
Do you have-
I saw Akira.
okay.
You know, that's
We do have someone
That
here
is
who,
from that same era.
Yeah, I want to talk about cyberpunk aesthetics. For example, when you got the idea of modern era. For example, in Aliens, you had curvy, smooth plastic, linen, vinyl, and nowadays it would be glass, steel, and chrome. Or you've got the difference between, say, Tron Legacy or Deus Ex Augmented Reality. What's your ideal take on cyberpunk aesthetics?
cyberpunk aesthetics.
So, like, one of my, I'd really pull from movies. Like, of course, when you think cyberpunk, you think Blade Runner is definitely a very important cyberpunk film. I also really enjoyed the movie Strange Days. So you have that sort of dingy, grimy, dark-looking kind of future. That's
Scanner Darkly is also
yeah, that's another one, and that's
vector-based, but
that's generally what I think when I think cyberpunk is kind of grittier like that. And I think the nice, shiny, rounded kind of future and the more the far off sci-fi space opera, like the kind of Star Trek Next Generation sort of world, as opposed to cyberpunk.
A really good movie that's the example kind of got overshadowed for The Matrix. It came out a year after.
Equilibrium?
No, actually, well, it's funny you mentioned that the other day, but Dark City.
Yeah.
Oh, Dark City
Yeah.
is incredible, yeah. And that, again, for me, has that sort of very dark, gritty kind of environment.
Noir.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk has a very strong
That's-
connection to noir.
Yeah.
like film
And-
noir from like the 30s,
Yeah.
And noir,
Like,
yeah,
I can definitely
30s and
see
40s,
Dark
yeah.
City.
Not only that,
like Big
yeah.
Sleep.
Right, that sort of dark, and also that sort of nihilistic approach. Like
Well,
a
there's
noir-
there's definitely an inherent negativity,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In noir
an
stories.
antagonistic, worst possible scenario.
Right, in noir stories, no one is ever happy. You know,
No.
in the end.
And I think
I just found one, Johnny Mnemonic from
Johnny
19
Mnemonic.
Johnny Mnemonic, yeah.
Mnemonic is from 95. That is real, because he like plugs something into increases brain
Yep.
storage and.
I know of it, but I have not seen that one.
I can't carry 2 gigs, man. Okay, seriously, that's like a lot of data.
Yeah, 2 gigs, man.
That's
Wow.
in there.
So, sorry.
There's another really good one that's sort of like cyberpunk, but with like organics. It's called Existence. And it's like a dream within a dream, but it's like these little organic things that basically take you into like this virtual, like, I don't know, it's like one of those
Right.
type of movies where it's like,
It's kind of like Inception. though?
well, sort of, but it's like a dark, it's hard to explain. It's like literally one of those things where you think it's one thing and it switches it on you.
Right.
So
Right.
it's- but
Don't
it has
spoil
that
it.
sort of-
Yeah, so I think, I mean, the aesthetics that I tend to like are the real world is dirty, it's dark, it's unpleasant, it's, grimy, and you escape into this sort of cyber world, which is a little more idealized, but is also more dangerous because
Along the Tron lines rather than, say, the Gattaca lines.
yes, yes, I would say, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I enjoyed Tron, but I don't really. When I think of cyberpunk stories like I'd like to write or something, I don't really think in all the neon kind of.
Yeah.
I think more of like your kind of Tokyo neon, where it's like this. It can be this sort of dangerous, grimy place, but also bright at the same time. Like it's actually the thing with William Gibson was he visited. I think it was somewhere in Japan, and his tour guide had been like, "See, this city is cyberpunk," and Gibson had been like, "Yeah, it sure is." I mean, it very much had the aesthetic that he had described in Neuromancer without even having seen that area, and it is that Asian kind of obsession with neon everywhere,
or like the
stuff
city
like
in Blade
that.
Runner too.
Yeah,
Is,
yeah.
Even though
which
I'm-
is actually Los Angeles in the future.
Yeah,
supposed
Los
to be.
Angeles. I'm not 100% convinced. Blade Runner doesn't feel as cyberpunky to me as some other stuff.
I think
Just
it
because
comes
of the
from the
central
replicants,
because of the
I
central
guess.
story.
It's very noir. Also.
It is noir. It is
Yeah.
definitely noir.
What about other Philip K. Dick, like we can remember for your wholesale? Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd also point out RoboCop. I mean, it's not because it has the same theme of corporate taking over everything as well as the androidness.
It does.
Aesthetics and
Yeah.
Minority Report.
And Minority Report
Report's a
too.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a
Um,
lot
And
more
RoboCop, if it didn't show up on the recording, RoboCop was mentioned, and it does have the theme of losing individuality and the corporations taking over and so on, machines and whatnot.
One that's an example from a more anime or video perspective is Akira's same author made a movie called Metropolis, where it's set for in the future in like Tokyo, but robots are very common, and they basically forced, because they can be manufactured super quick, they forced regular people out of their jobs. So there's like a super high class society, and then there's all that's left, and they're in just basically squalms and squats down beneath the city, and they're trying to rebel against the whole system because they think it's unfair.
Is that based on the
I've seen
Fritz
it.
Lang's
It's
Metropolis?
based on
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied in film class, and it actually has a really, really, really slick ending. If you compare the two movies side by side, if you want to for like a movie night, it's got the robot element and the creating element that they had in the original 1930s.
Yeah,
German
and
black and white
definitely like an expression of identity and questioning what it means to be human.
But that personal sort of like big-eyed, personal emotion, Japanese character like hit you at the hard moments. with
Right.
All this cyberpunk things.
Well, and I want to correct myself because I said it was the person that wrote Akira. I was mistaken. It's Astro Boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same director and sort of style design.
I apologize. I was like, oh no, because he'd mentioned Akira, and so that was off the top of my head. No, it's the artist that did Astro Boy.
I've
Yeah,
got it
Astro-
on
okay.
DVD. It's been a while since I've watched.
I mean,
Okay.
the second you see it, you're like Astro Boy. Like
I was-
you can tell it's the same artist.
As you mentioned it, I was like, I think actually the original Metropolis actually is probably as close to cyberpunk as someone could get in the 1920s or
Oh yeah, and
whenever it was.
that's the anime one is in the same vein.
right.
So it's just that's what I thought of because we were talking about anime earlier.
Yeah, but there's some other antecedents. Alfred Vester.
Yes.
Whose work.
The Demolished Man and The Star's My Destination, which are really good, albeit slightly confusing.
Yes.
Which also applies to a lot of cyberpunk.
And dark and sad.
And dark and sad.
Okay, kind of a different. So, how does like a books or cover art produce to like sales of a book? How does
Okay, so we're moving off of cyberpunk to say how does
I kind of want to change the subject. a little
how
bit.
does how does cover art affect sales of a book?
A lot.
I don't know,
lot.
you would.
Yeah.
Have you had? So let me ask specifically. Have you had the experience where you changed a book cover and could see an effect on sales? Because I know you've reissued a couple of the anthologies like Fang and Roar
Yep.
with different covers.
The original concept for Fang was it was going to be the little black book of furry fiction. So, for those who aren't familiar, each volume was plain black except for the color of the Fang logo changed. And that was like, it was a neat idea, but like in the book sold okay, but it changed editors later on with volume 4, and that editor decided he wanted to go with actual drawn artwork instead, which led us to redoing the covers of the first 3. And all of a sudden, we actually sold a lot more of those older books. They really picked up again. And also in Roar, Volume 1 used to have a plain white cover with just a sort of a gradient effect. And then we went and got a cover by Ruckus and reintroduced that. And that book has sold a lot more with the artwork cover. So, I mean, you can have... It's one of those situations where you sort of balance design and functionality. Like, we've had some covers submitted that are like really solid with design and really cool, but it's like, this is great as a poster or something, but it doesn't really work as a book cover. It's like this very specific subsection of good design. And, you know, yeah, sometimes we have to say, no, this isn't going to work, or change things around, or... So, yeah, it's, you know, there is the old saying about not judging a book by its cover, but when you're actually trying to sell books, you really have to look at it the other way, and you have to take a great book and give it a great cover so that it will get into readers' hands.
And from the perspective of selling them online, one of the things that you also have to make sure is that your cover looks good when it's 3/4 of an inch by 1/2 an inch on a screen or on a mobile phone. Because if you may have like this awesome cover with like, you know, Hieronymus Bosch level detail and little things going on in it, and when it's shrunken down to where people are reviewing it on a website, it looks like an incomprehensible blur. It's not going to be an attractive title. And if they can't read the title on the little thing, that also makes a difference.
Yeah.
Same thing, it's comparable to the graphic design industry when people want to make their own logos or make their own thing, and you have to think about, if I shrink this down to this big to be on a business card versus if it's going to be on a letterhead, a website, but also if somebody prints this out in black and white, if it's a rainbow, it's not going to show up. So it's like color makes a big difference, like the medium that it's printed, it makes a big difference. And like you were saying, like, people don't judge a book by its cover, but things that pop, people pick up more.
Yeah.
It, you know, we're attracted to various things.
Yeah.
To an extent, you even want to think about like spine design, because if you're in a traditional book market and
you're only going to see the spine.
you're going to have some books that are cover front, and then you're going to have a lot of books that are shown from the spine. We have to worry about that a little bit less because the majority of our sales are direct with our customers, either on our website or here at conventions. But it is still something that you want to consider, is having something that popping is good, but at the very least, very clear and not a mess. You can clearly read the title and the author.
Yeah, I'm now amused imagining your website having just a bookshelf with all the spines of your books on it, and people just have to click on it to pull it out, and that would be a little too realistic.
Really over the top, long, like JavaScript animation or something.
I actually
Flash, yeah.
No, make it an Oculus app.
That sounds complicated. I can't do that.
One of the I know of Furry writing boards, or so, they actually made it like that, because if somebody wrote a whole bunch of stories inside there, so you like click on the author, and then they'd have the list of the people's, and then you click it, and it would kind of come. It seems like very basic because it was just text, and then come out. And so it felt like you were actually like grabbing a book in.
Yeah,
you were
that's
taking
cool.
off that.
I mean,
you're taking off that
it-
author's shelf, or
If you're trying to replicate that experience.
there was some discussion about that I'd read on. It's like the transition between selling print books and selling ebooks and the ebook experience. And early on, ebook developers for the actual ebook gadgets tried very hard to replicate the experience of the book. Like iBooks on the iPad has a little page flip sound if you have the sound on, and you can actually lift it like that. And then later on, they kind of realized that, people that are reading ebooks know that they're reading an ebook and they want to read an ebook. And you don't have to have all that extraneous stuff in there to try to make you think that you're reading a print book. If you want to read a print book, you read a print book.
Mm-hmm.
So like that kind of thing is kind of out of vogue now because, with the 5-10 years ago, we didn't have to worry about what it was going to look like at some tiny inch-high 72 DPI. That's a
Yep.
relatively new thing.
Yep.
Now we have to think about that kind of thing with cover design.
Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah,
pretty
so
good cover
so
of the
good
question.
covers
So,
are
yeah.
important. I
Yes,
mean, if you're
the cover
if you're
makes a difference for sure.
Kyle, do you get to choose? I mean, I know for your you've had a great artist do all the books that you've done. You've had the same artist do all the.
All the Archaea books.
Yeah, I try to
Yeah.
I try to keep them consistent. That's more about
Or is that
that's
up
more
to
about
editor
making them recognizable
or
as a
publisher?
series. It's about like so that people look at a table and they're like, oh, all these 4 books have the same style cover, same art style. They're clearly all part of a series. It's usually my preference to keep the same artist, and I've been fortunate enough that the artists have been amenable to that. They tend to like working on the same property over and over again. So, I mean, that's just a question of making it easier for the customer to realize that, if I have a series of 4 books and the third one looks different from the others and nobody knows that they should be picking that up also, then they're not going to buy it, and then they're going to be unhappy because they're missing a book, and I'm going to be unhappy because they're not buying the book, and so it's just much better to have it be consistent.
We actually had an example that happened today. We sold a copy of Weasel Presents because they had just bought like the last 2 Archaea books from your table, and then they walked over to ours and they were like, wait a minute, is this another one? Because it's a Sarah Palmer
Same artist,
cover.
Sarah,
and
yeah.
we were like, yeah, that's a
Sarah
short
Miles
story
and-
collection. And was it Sarah Miles?
She goes by Sarah Miles now.
That's
yes.
right, she got married or
She did
something
get married.
at the time. Okay, yeah.
Like 5 years ago or something.
I know,
I
I totally
didn't
don't,
catch up.
I don't keep track.
I was
but
thinking
felt bad.
Also, the first publication of Others in Space was different than the second one.
Don't say anything bad about that cover because the author
Oh.
is sitting right behind you.
Well, I picked it up because of the author, because I was looking at it initially and I go, this is unusual. I wasn't quite sure about it. And then somebody said this is a good book, and I mentioned it, and I go, well, okay. I started reading. I go, I loved it. I almost picked up the second when it was republished with the new artwork, and just to have the new one with the. I love them.
I mean, one of the things that people say about self-publishing is, if you want to goose sales of a book, change the cover, because people will just see a new cover and they'll be like, "Oh, new cover," and
She's got a new hat.
I mean, yes, Malibu Stacy. But anyway, other people have questions or anything that they want to talk about. We're coming up close on like
an hour
time when we could start wrapping things up. But if people have other things they want us to talk about, we can talk about that. Wow, you guys are all super quiet. It's only Friday night. You're saving your energy for the dance later, right? That's what's going on?
We already missed retro night.
You missed retro night?
Yeah, retro night happened while we were doing this.
Oh.
Oh.
We could have went and lived it up like it was 1985.
It's the big
Yeah.
suit time, actually.
Oh, okay. Well,
Everyone's up.
I'd have to go away then.
Aw.
They scare me. The big fluffy heads. And just like, don't know what they're thinking.
Or where they're.
Oh yeah, is there?
My
so-
telepathy can't
Are you
penetrate
happy? Are you
foam,
sad?
so.
Why the neutral expression?
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the Scottish independence vote failing?
So I've been asked about my thoughts on that overall, because I mean, for those who don't know, I'm a Scottish citizen. I moved here 30 years ago with my family. I was just a wee bairn at the time. And I've always said that, I have not been living under the realm of Scottish politics or British politics in general for the last 30 years. So if I was even able to make a vote, which I wasn't in this case, I wouldn't really know which way to go or what would be better for the country or not, because I'm a lot more familiar with U.S. politics. So,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I know, right? So I mean, I love that they can yell at the prime minister, and that's normal. Back when Tony Blair was PM, you would actually have other ministers of parliament, you lied to us, you scumbag, actually yelling this kind of stuff at him, and that was just done. You don't really do that with the president over here unless you're a total dick. But I like that
people
kind
have,
of freedom.
People have done it, and it makes the news. Like I think somebody interrupted the State of the Union 3 or 4 years ago and just yelled liar or something.
Oh, that's only happens to
Or
Obama.
horseshoe.
That's one president. But yeah, so I'm kind of cool with Scotland either way, whether the country remained part of the United Kingdom or was an independent. I did talk to my aunt, who was born in Scotland but is married to an Englishman and lives in northern England, and she was just like, it would never work economically. And I'm just like, well, you'd know better than me, so okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have a firm opinion on it, one way or the other, really.
Okay. Well, that was the Politics Now segment of Unsheathed.
Here on BBC
definitely-
Unsheathed.
Yes.
We'll
It
be
definitely
discussing.
seems like something that wouldn't be good for the economy, but at the same time, it seems like it's something that a lot of Scotsmen want.
Well, the question, as far as I've understood it, is which economy it would not be good for.
Which would be Scotland's.
Because, well, Scotland does bring a lot of money into the UK. They have oil fields, they have whiskey exports.
Yeah.
The haggis
The
industry
haggis,
is huge.
yeah.
Just the haggis industry.
Not
So much
to
haggis.
mention wool.
And
I mean,
right.
I knit, so I'm biased.
Yep.
There's a lot of wool.
There you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, as with Fuzz, I'm not conversant. All I know is from talking to various people, and people have said,
And it's a country that, and I know this myself, for some reason Scottish expats are fiercely patriotic about Scotland. I am myself, and I don't really know why, because I haven't lived there since I was 8. But there is a very strong sense of Scotland, yeah, kind of thing. And I think a lot of the independence movement was sort of driven by that a little bit, But it's like if Texas really tried to secede, which is another place I live in, and that motion has been, promoted several times. And I'm like, yeah, I know that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Like six
like you
Californias.
were saying,
If California secedes, it will be because the big one cracks it off of the coast.
If a part of their country that brings in a shit ton of revenue decides, I want to break free, they're like, no.
yeah.
We want to keep that revenue.
Yeah.
Well, California had a proposal which did not, thankfully, make it onto the ballot.
Oh, to break it into
into
six,
6 states.
Yeah.
The 6 California's proposal, which is, oh my God, it's so ridiculous.
Talk about gerrymandering, on a mass scale.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I don't even know. It's not even that. It's some stupid guy with way too much money.
Then on the other
Would
hand, you
create
have
the fourth
Canada.
state in the Union.
Canada is interesting because, Scotland's vote was fairly decisive. It failed within a full 10 percentage points. But Canada was less than 1 percentage point for Quebec to go independent. And the majority of non-Quebec living Canadians I've spoken to have been fine, go. So,
which is a lot of, I should say, West Coast people's opinions about Texas as well.
yeah, if I didn't live there, I'd be fine with that. I'd love to just scoop up DFW and plop it into Northern California or something, because then I could enjoy that lovely the weather.
Climate, yeah.
Climate, thank you, that's what I was looking for. But hopefully still keep my Texas property values and my taxes much lower.
And the lack of state tax. Which is,
But my marriage would be recognized, which would be
That's also
a nice
true.
benefit.
That is
we
also
don't have
true.
any income tax.
That is a
Um,
good thing.
Okay, well, so we're close to an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you, all of you guys, for coming out to hang out with us for an hour while we talk about stuff. Thanks, Fuzz, for joining me here, and
My pleasure.
and for providing banter for an hour, and thank you, Kit, for being here and being moral support. Yay! Thumbs up. Is there anyone else that I forgot? You tweeted. Did you live tweet our podcast?
I did every word.
Awesome.
I got a lot of unsubscribes. You got fast.
Kit was live tweeting and everyone unfollowed him. So go follow Kit Silver on Twitter. Follow him back. Anyone else I should mention? You're the one who reminds me who I should be saying things to.
Thank you to B Hop for showing his disgust at our recording rig this evening. He's crossing himself.
He's shaking his head. But anyway, yes. Thanks, guys. We will see you at the next RainFurrest. And thank you. Good night, everybody. And if you are a writer, keep writing. All right. Yay. Applause out.
Oh, the applause looks good.